Good. Okay. Thanks very much for inviting me, James. That's lovely. I think I come with a caveat of saying I'm going to talk about a case study which sort of is my journey through this, but it's not the best model. It's not the outstanding model. It is just a journey I have taken in 2 institutions, and I'm sharing that because I want to make sure that people know they can contact me if they have any questions about this. Because when I started out on this journey about 4 to 5 years ago, initially in Bristol and now in Birmingham, my heart just sank when these FOIs came in Patricia was talking about, and I didn't really know who to turn to get support with it. So I'm hugely grateful to every member of my team in Bristol and now in Birmingham who actually found their way through all these different registries and came up with a plan and a map on how we could achieve compliance. We engaged also with all the lobbyists and sought their input into this journey. And I must say, actually, now I found it really supportive to be engaged with the lobbyist. And a lot of material has now come out which is supportive to HEIs. And for that reason, I would encourage everybody to engage on that whole journey with all stakeholders. So my job, of course, is to ensure that the institution I work for is compliant and is kept out of negative press. And what Patricia said, that the participants in our trial don't lose confidence in participating in the research we do. So in my talk, I'm going to go through 3 sort of registries and then pose a question of how we go forward. Patricia already offered a way into this, and this is just a roadmap we took, and you might or might not find that helpful. So the first one I'm going to focus on is on ClinicalTrialsgov. I do still allow ClinicalTrials.gov. It has a limited use in the institution I work for now. I come to that in the second slide now. So the first thing I want to concentrate is on the legacy of ClinicalTrials.gov. So for those of you who are confronted with legacy of ClinicalTrials.gov, might mean that you get approached by US colleagues to say that you know, there are trials running with you being the sponsor, or the institution being the sponsor, and that they would like you to take those on and tidy the account up. When that happened to us, we were asked to take a study over from someone else. We then decided to create a central institutional account, and that's true for both institutions I worked for. The good thing about that is it gives you control over who is going to post results onto that registry, and you can make sure that it's validated okay and kept up to date. What is important, and I think Patricia iterated that already, is that it's time consuming. You do need support to do that, and you need capable support. So again, members of my team really embraced that and learned about the registry and how they could manage it. And it became part of the job description of members in the team. What we found really useful with ClinicalTrialsgov was actually engaging with colleagues from trial registries. The colleagues in the US are extremely responsive, and it was a really easy journey to tidy up the accounts and make sure that the trials we had on there were actually trials that really were sponsored by the institution, and that made that journey much easier. Where there were inaccurately allocated, there was a process we could write to them, we could bring evidence of who was maybe now the sponsor, and those trials would then be allocated somewhere else. And then obviously it's important to work closely with the research community to keep them abreast of the challenges. So like Patricia said, people think it's an easy registry to go to, and they register their trials on it, but then often it's forgotten about. and we need the community to stay engaged. So there is sort of there's a constant staying in touch with the research community to see if they're updating and if they need any support. So prospectively, we build trial registration and reporting needs into grant application where possible. So there's actually a work stream that acknowledges there's some analysis to be done. We look very carefully at what researchers really need to register on ClinicalTrials.gov. So for us, there are two criteria. So either they have US funding from NIH, or they want to publish in an American journal. And I haven't been as successful with pushing back on not posting onto registries. So in those sort of scenarios, I will allow it. And we will support the researchers doing that. But we do the same. We would obviously want to avoid duplication where possible. And again, we need to make sure that we stay in touch with the researchers from a capability point of view, and also to make sure that we don't fall into any of the heavy sanctions that could occur if we don't upload the results in the appropriate way. So I'll pause there for a minute because I wanted to give everybody a chance to reflect on their own journeys to ClinicalTrials.gov. So if there was anything very specific you wanted to ask about that registry, then I would be happy to take a few questions now, but also, of course, on the end. I think, James, you're going to have a look in it, aren't you?
Yes, so thank you, everyone. So your experiences with ClinicalTrials.gov, what do people think? We had a general question about registries. You know, is a problem with registries due to how well or how little people know the registry? Is there a problem with teaching about the usage of registries? But we would like to hear, and you can be anonymous if you want, your experiences with ClinicalTrials.gov would be very helpful. So do let us know, guys. Okay. We've had some question just asked, is not really an experience of clinical trials. Is it possible ClinicalTrials.gov is holding the information submitted to their registry to a higher standard than other registries which are less demanding or have less quality control?
Okay, so for my experience of ClinicalTrials.gov, they're a little bit ahead of other registries. So they have started the journey of wanting to ensure accurate information in the registry slightly earlier than UKRIO did, for example. Because they are in the US, it's the compliance within that registry is actually heavily legislated against as well. So I think they've benefited from that. But also had more resource. So from what I understand from UKRIO colleagues, is that there's very little resource there to support research as well. ClinicalTrialsgov really have a very helpful interface to the research community to help. So I think that makes it probably easier to engage with that registry and make sure that the questions asked or the validation issues are resolved easy.
Thank you. We still don't have much on people's actual experiences, but a couple have just come in. Someone said they agree that PRS is very responsive. Someone else has commented that it's definitely easier to manage things if researchers are engaged and motivated to keep things up to date. And someone else said, I've experienced issues with CT.gov where they're asking for data that was not part of the original research, and so that makes it difficult to complete all the relevant sections.
Okay, so might be worthwhile actually really writing to colleagues from the registry. So when we have a situation like this, I actually write to them and say, look, we have an issue, how can we resolve this, and offer a solution of how that's gone. So I wouldn't, like, I build up frustrations quite quickly when I when I'm in an IT system that doesn't sort of isn't responsive, or there's no one I can talk to. So I wouldn't go anywhere down those frustrations. I would actually email, and they respond literally within a day or so, and you can have a real engaged conversation with colleagues there.
Thank you. An anonymous questioner asked, you mentioned you wish to avoid being penalised for not adding the results to a trial record. What are the actual consequences of not adding the results?
So for certain group of trials, so mostly the interventional trials, so the definitions here and there are slightly different. But they are really heavy fines. I think it's something like $10,000 a day or something. So when you're going onto a registry like this and you register the trial and then you don't keep it up to date, they have the potential of charging really heavy fines. And that's part of the reason. I'm sure Patricia doesn't use it anymore, and I very much limit the use and control fiercely the upload of that. It's not for the sort of a lesser risk trial, so if it's a questionnaire study or something like that, it's not for those, but it's for these interventional trials, clinical trials by US standards, where that could apply. I don't think they've enforced it yet, but the fine is there by legislation, so it could be enforced.
Thank you. One person's commented that tidying up historic entries that were perhaps not best placed on CT.gov in the first place can prove tricky. It's not the best system for feasibility studies. And a question from someone else, what are your plans for after Brexit and UDRACT no longer becomes the trial database of choice for CTIMs and traffic is instead directed towards ClinicalTrialsgov?
It'll be interesting to see where we're going with that. I think at the moment, I think the registry remains accessible to us. We had thought it would stop immediately, but I think it will remain accessible at least at the moment. But I think we'll watch this space. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe Mark can say something. We go to ISRCTN and do it that way. We should have a UK registry. It would be good to engage with that.
Well, we can certainly pick Mark's brains on these issues later. We've been asked, do you upload the results on behalf of the researchers?
It depends what the researchers need. So obviously the researchers hold the data, and it's really important that they engage with us. But if they can provide the data to us, and so I have a member of my team who's amazing on the registry, and they will do that for the researchers. But obviously the researcher has to check it to make sure it's correct. So there is a QA process. If we do this, that we go back to the researcher saying, look, before we put it through, post the results, actually you need to agree. So it can't be done completely without the researcher, but we can do the hand holding. So my team member, for example, sits with the researcher or the research team to actually upload the results, so we can resolve issues easier. So again, it's to take the frustration out of the process. Are we there? Okay, shall I carry on, James?
Sorry about that. My other computer just crashed. Unfortunately, I had a laptop switched on. So, you know, redundancy is a useful thing. Yeah, I have the blue screen of death. So my apologies, the joys of Windows. So I'm going to assume that you just...
I'm just going to go to the next one, shall I?
Yes, I think that's probably best. I need to get the archive Q&A stream back. So my apologies for that. Please do carry on.
Okay, go on to that one. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the UDRACT CT. So I think again I think we saw the same with Patricia. We did our interventional trials, we did the CTIMs, we've had inspections, we did our end of study report, and then we did the study report sort of within the year. We published and all of the results are out there. So I think we were in a position where we thought we did really well, and then realized that clearly there's something else to be done. For us, UDRACT CT was a bit more of a challenge because the system was, and to a certain extent still is, a really difficult system to negotiate for researchers, and it took us quite some time to work out how we give the right support to the research community to get the results up there. So again, we made sure we had a central account, and then when the trial tracker came out, we obviously verified against the trial tracker. So we wanted to make sure that the trial tracker picked up certain things, that we were actually certain that we didn't have any other CTIMs out there that needed to be reported. Again, a member of my team has a dedicated a line in their job description to support that registry too, and worked closely with the researchers to support them in the legacy upload of results. Now, with the lobbyist pushing institutions to engage with this, there was a real difficult situation created, in as much that institutions really wanted to upload data, but it just simply wasn't possible from registry limitations point of view, where, for example, a study had maybe been set up and didn't ever recruit, and it was on the registry but we couldn't take it off. We tried everything. We wrote to the regulator, we wrote to EMEA, we tried every which way to do that. And it was only really over the last year that colleagues from other institutions were absolutely amazing in finding ways to do this. And then they shared that with me, and that meant I could actually clear off some of the legacies too. So for a while it looked like the institution wasn't compliant with uploading results, but actually it was results that there weren't any results, they couldn't be uploaded, or other reasons. And so the legacy tidying up took quite some time. So I think in both institutions I've worked for, it took a year to a year and a half to get to grips with the legacy issues and try and tidy this up. And even now, Patricia alluded to chief investigators moving or other traumatic circumstances happening to them. During COVID, I decided not to chase clinicians, because I had researchers who were working on the front line, and the last thing I wanted to do was chase them for the upload of their results. So we might breach, but for a limited amount of time, but I think that's perfectly justifiable. So for those sort of legacy tidy up moments, you need a lot of patience. And the good thing though is that just after I tidied all my legacy up, or most of my legacy up, things have now happened. So it was always possible to upload a PDF for trial results for a trial that completed before 2014. So that upload of result was really easy. You just put up the publication or the summary of the results. And for any trial closed afterwards, that wasn't possible, or anything where you couldn't upload results. And recently, it's now become possible to upload a sort of a summary page to say that this study terminated early, for example. And that should help a little bit if you've still got legacy trials to tidy up, to do that. I've put also in as a link and the reference the King's Health Partners case study. So this is from someone who helped me hugely get to the compliance rate I am now. I'm really grateful to Jackie for sharing all of that. And if you are still struggling and you look for practical ways through this, then you might want to have a look at that. Prospectively now, so I'm lucky, so I have two big clinical trial units, and they've been hugely supportive in engaging with that. So we build trial registration reporting into institutional policies and procedures. So it's part of our quality manual, it's part of our code of practice, and it's part of the CTU's quality manual and how they operate. And at pre-award, we want to make sure that there is some time given to researchers, statisticians, to ensure that the results can be uploaded. So one of the problems we ran against was a situation where, for example, the statistical analysis hadn't taken care of the age brackets for UDRACT, and that was causing huge issues. So now at the beginning of the trial, people can look at what's required for reporting and can make sure the statistical analysis includes this. And we build input reporting needs into the statistical analysis. So as far as possible, we try not to duplicate, and obviously we support and do the same hand-holding that we do for ClinicalTrialsgov to get the research community supported. So I'll briefly pause there to see if we've got any questions about UDRACT-CT from colleagues, or any comments they wish to make. Are you back online, James?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I'm very glad that when I got kicked out, no one else got kicked out. Okay, we've had a lot of questions come in. Nicholas DeVito mentioned of interest to many on this call, the EMA apparently has just released guidance on how to submit results for trials that never happened. So that's useful to know. We have, let's see what else we've got. Okay, so... Right. We were asked, what is the size of your team at Birmingham who manage this, and roughly how many studies do you manage?
Okay, so in Birmingham we have about 110 CTIMs active at the moment. So we are quite a busy unit. I have two big clinical trial units who support that activity. I have one unit has probably about 200 people in there, and the other about 100 people working in there. And then I have a small team of people in the central office where we are 4 people who look after research governance and 3 people who look after university ethics. So the job itself of looking after registries is one person who supports that, and she has got that in her job description now. I think she probably spends about half a day a week on it.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Someone's asked, how did you get a centralized account with UDRACT? We've tried, but they say this isn't a function that they offer. Okay.
So we just set that up, but I set that up quite early on. So we have complete control where we then can give researchers access. Okay. James, can you, actually it's on my slides, so whoever that is, do you want to email me directly? My email is on the last slide, and I will try and get an answer to you. Because we didn't have a problem with that, so I don't know what the issue was.
Thank you. That's good to know. Brilliant. Okay, we've had, someone says some updates to UDRACT and the data flow into the EU trial tracker rely on the actions of a third party, the MHRA. Their response times can vary, and this is out of our control. They think it's important to keep evidence that they have been contacted so that you can demonstrate your own efforts in attempting to update the registry.
Absolutely. So I think some of the issues are that that's why I said this registry was more of a headache for me than ClinicalTrials.gov, because it was sort of often a chicken and egg situation. So I'm still battling at the moment with one of my trials, which actually sponsorship moved over many years ago, and we're trying to work with the MHRA to change this all over. Then we're now engaging with the registry who want certain other things to change it over. So it really isn't the easiest of journeys to move through, and some situations you really can't do anything about. What I do think is that if you look at Jackie's case study from KCL, there are some fixes you can do, and I have used them. So where you find yourself in a situation like this and you know you're never going to upload results, then actually there is a way of uploading results, sort of uploading results to the study and then adding the whole due diligence trail to that document. So it's at least visible to everybody that you have tried every which way to get that record straight and do that. I think the other issue which we have with it as well is we run quite a lot of international trials, and I think depending on what international collaborators are doing, it might still look non-compliant if somebody hasn't uploaded in another country. So there are issues with that registry, and it's not always possible to get to the 100% upload. But I think it's absolutely true to keep the due diligence, and of course to, if you can, make that visible.
Thank you very much. Lisa Carter said that we had a problem with UDRACT where the MHRA hadn't registered the study at the CTA stage. We've been sending amendments and DSURs, and so provided all the information that they needed to do this. We only discovered it when it came to upload the results, and it took months to sort out eating into our reporting period.
Yeah, I can imagine it. It really is difficult with the interface between UDRACT and the national regulators. And I think what happened when Brexit was announced, the colleagues from that registry moved from London to the Netherlands, and not many people moved with them. So in one of the conferences organised by some of the lobbyists, the EMA a representative was there and explained their predicament with this, because we sort of went saying, look, can't you fix this registry for us, and can you not be more responsive to us, because we want to get this right, but we can't. But they're under huge resource constraints, and so and of course all minds are focused on Brexit, not on developing a registry that might or might not be applicable for the UK. So I think it put it for me in perspective a little bit why it was so difficult. It doesn't make it much better. The frustrations are still there, but at least there was a reason for it.
Thank you. Angelica Christex commented, you can assign yourself as primary user and then add up backup users for the researchers on UDRACT so you can create access for all studies. We've had people from Cardiff saying their experience is quite similar to yours. Claire Floden comments, I think it's too much to expect CIs to take responsibility for reporting, particularly on UDRACT. That's why it's important that trials are run through CTUs or that local R&Ds have staff to support this activity.
Yeah. So in Birmingham, so in Bristol, we did CTIMs outside CTUs. In Birmingham, we don't. All CTIMs are run through a CTU, and it's been fantastic. The support CTUs are offering and the expertise staff have. Indeed, the CTU supported non-CTU supported researchers in the upload of results, which was a really positive movement from CTU members of staff to actually make their time available to people who actually, it wasn't their study, but they still shared their expertise. So my experience, yes, if you have a CTU and you can get engagement from the CTU to help with that, it's wonderful.
Thank you. I think one last comment on UDRACT. Lucy Calvert says there's a lot of confusion around the time of the transition between being able to upload a PDF and actual data. For one study, we thought we were up to date, and the sponsor then took several years to tell us that what had been done was not sufficient.
Gosh, yeah. So there are some horror stories out there. I think the answer is you just got to persevere with it. And my journeys, honestly, I joined Birmingham 2 years ago now, and I still have stuff which I haven't resolved, but we're slowly making progress, step by step, working our way through all these different hurdles. Hopefully, eventually we'll end up with a registry which works much better.
Thank you, that was really interesting. We have a few other questions, but I think we'll deal with those at the end of the session.
Should we move on? Okay. So I just wanted to finish with something that is now featuring very heavy in my work streams. So having now sort of got a good angle on what studies I've got on ClinGov and on UDRACT, and to a certain extent of ISHTN, but that's much easier to navigate. I now have moved into that space, and some of you might have had FOIs about it actually. So there is a WHO definition of what should be registered as a trial. And actually that's much wider than CTIMS. So roughly the first 4 categories of IRAS, if that means something to people. So those sort of studies I now need to tackle, because we haven't got all of that sorted yet, and I haven't put a provision on my database yet to manage that registration through and make sure that we are compliant with actually a much wider definition of clinical trials. I take those questions into the Q&A, James, so I won't pause here on this one, but I think that's something we can explore in Q&A a little bit more to see where people are with that, because if there is a bit of best practice sharing in that space, that would be really good to do, I think. So I'll stop there and go into Q&A. Thank you.
Brilliant. I think we have, sorry, just turn my camera back on. Looking at the time, I think we've got, we can take questions for a couple of minutes and then we'll move on to Mark and then have more general discussion towards the end of the webinar. So just looking very quickly at the Q&As that come in. Okay, we've got stuff that's quite UDRACT. Till Bruckner has circulated a link from Transferamed, and Till, what I'll do is I'll put that into the chat stream now so everyone can see it. So you can have a look at that. And yes, one question came in relation for an anonymous attendee, in relation to the increasing frequency of FOI requests. Do you have a public statement on your website about Birmingham's processes?
I haven't. So we have obviously, what is on our website is our code of practice for research, and within our code of practice of research, it makes it clear what we expect of researchers. We also have our QMS available, so our quality manual available, as well as the Central University Quality Manual with all the SOPs and what is in there. So I haven't done another very specific statement about clinical trial reporting, no. I suppose the time where I pick it up is probably in the research integrity statement. So on the obviously on the website there is a research integrity statement, and I think on the one which we do to council, probably this one will put a little bit on the journey of trial reporting on there.
Thank you. Another question from an anonymous attendee. Have you experienced any hesitation amongst researchers regarding reporting on UDRACT prior to the primary publication being accepted?
Yes, and actually something that was really helpful was from publishers actually making it clear that it's okay. So there are some links that are available, and where publishers have actually made it clear that publishing on the registry is okay and it doesn't prevent publication later. I think that made the biggest difference. It isn't always accepted by all publishers, so it's still worth checking. So I have had one researcher who actually said that the journal they were wanting to publish wouldn't allow that. But generally, I think while researchers are concerned, of course, they have then seen that there's good evidence out there that publishers will accept it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think what we'll do now is, if we, unless you had anything you finally wanted to say, we'll, I think, close your session. We'll start with Mark's, and then we'll have some time for some of the more general questions we put to all the panelists at the end.
Probably one thing, James, I think one thing I want to finish with is to really make a bit clear what I found in the whole time I've been on this journey in these institutions is that researchers really need the hand-holding. They do not need punishment. They need absolutely the time of me and my team to hand-hold them through that journey, because it can be really tricky and it can be really time-consuming, and they should spend their time doing other things. And so I really think it's hugely important that we go onto and support our research community in uploading the results, and we do that hand-holding, and there is not any sort of punishment coming out of that. And so I think we're still not at that stage when we're anywhere near any sanctions. We are still in building the culture to upload.